What if the very thing that's holding you back right now is not your circumstances, but your fear of doing it imperfectly? So many women I talk to, especially in midlife, feel so stuck, not because they don't have big dreams, but because they don't know the next step or they're too afraid of getting it wrong. If that sounds familiar, this episode's for you because today I'm speaking with Michelle Sarabia. You are going to love her. She's a coach, a faith-filled leader, and the founder of the Fearless Forward movement. And she's definitely walked through a lot of big life pivots, identity loss, doubt, and fear, and she came out way stronger on the other side. We talk about why perfectionism is often fear in disguise, how to get clarity when you don't have the full plan, what happens when you put your faith in God instead of your own timeline, and how to finally stop sitting on the sidelines of your own life. Whether you're starting over at 40, 50, 60, or even later, this episode is packed with so much wisdom from Michelle, so much truth and practical steps to help you do it messy and move fearlessly forward. If you love this episode, please share it with a friend who's feeling stuck. And if you're ready to stop overthinking and start living with intention, this conversation is what you need today. Let's dive in. Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be with you. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
I think so too,
Yeah.
because I was so excited. I've been following you. And women in midlife are going to be so blessed today because some of us have felt so stuck in our lives. We feel like we overthink everything. We're perfectionists, so we don't move forward very well. And I know that you are helping people do that. Right now, you're helping leaders and creators and people, even normal people who just need to make a change in their life. But I want to focus on you for a moment. Where in your life have you felt really stuck? How did you get out of that? What was the thing that inspired you to move forward? And did that help you create what you're doing with Fearless Forward to help others?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, where I found being stuck, and I think for a lot of us, can be when we become mothers and we are raising our children, and that we get lost with our identity in that. We identify as David's mom, Hannah's mom. Identify as whatever our child's name is and mom behind that. And as we move on, as they get older, then we begin to have to loosen the reins, right? We unattach, we cut the cord, if you will. And then we realize, who am I? The kids are gone, they're graduated from college, all the things, right? They're adult children, they're learning how to be on their own. And we trust that we've given them the solid foundation. But then what happens is we look in the mirror and go, who am I? Like, I don't even recognize who I am anymore because I was this, and this before. For me, it was corporate. For me, it was identifying as a business owner. We have a construction business. So all the things, but yet, who am I now? And so making that transition and really looking at myself in the mirror and really asking God, like, who am I? Who am I in that you have made me to be today? And what can I do with that? And so that's kind of been the go-to, my fearlessness of saying, you know what, this is who I'm created to be. And I feel like we can just walk this out and help me walk this process. I think the hardest part has been walking it out. And with anybody. Because here's the deal. I don't have all the answers, but I do know what the end goal is. And for me, the end goal always is to, one, glorify God, and to be in the process of saying, I have walked through some stuff, some hard stuff, and I am who I am today because of it. And so being able to depend on him has been such an influence in my life.
That's really powerful. And every woman who's listening, you're listening to this right now, you've been through some hard stuff. There are so many things that we've gone through, loss and divorce and different things that we've had to go through from traumas growing up also that lead us into who we are today. And I love how you share that we are this person because of, not in spite of,
Not in
because
spite of.
of.
Right.
Yeah, we really are who we are now, but finding that and wanting clarity is always so challenging. And when we reach out and we're asking, what do you say to the woman who's asking and praying on this and saying, who am I? What do I do next? What's my purpose? But they're not sure they're getting an answer. How do you move forward when you don't feel like you know what's coming next?
Right. Well, there's two things that are going on. There's a fear and there's a faith. And somehow those two things are colliding. And you really have to ask yourself, where do I want to go next? Do I want to live in fear or do I want to live in faith? And I find that when women really decide that I want to live in a faith, well, faith requires not in the known, but it requires an unknown territory, meaning you have no roadmap. You have no idea where you're going, but some way, somehow, there's something inside of you that is stirring up to do something, to be active in something. And you've got to lead in that direction. So what that requires is just taking a step. I think where we stay stuck is that we want the whole plan, right? We're moms, we're women. We want the plan before we take the step. We want the plan and the financials right behind it to be able to say, go do this. It doesn't make sense. And what I find is that when you will never have clarity until you actually walk it out, until you take that first step. Because what happens is a refinement takes place. You may think this is what it's going to look like, but in reality, sometimes what it looks like, and we give it to God, right? We let Him walk the steps out with us. We find that our plan is nothing compared to what He gives us. His plan is greater. and so, but we had to find in ourselves that what He's put in us to do, because, it's kind of like Moses. He felt, Moses in the Bible felt like, no, I can't do this. I don't have speech. I don't know how to talk to people. But yet God orchestrated a way for him to trust not Moses, but to trust God. And that's the positions that I feel like once we get that and grab a hold of that, that I am just a conduit, that I am just who He's made me to be. And I need to walk that out, trusting my Creator, that He's created me to do the things that He has put inside to me to do.
And I don't know about everyone else and you, but any plan that I've ever had has actually been revealed to me that it's not really the plan, because God's plan always twists to the left or the right. It's not where I'm going.
Right.
Hence a podcast now.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's one of the things. Let's talk about failure and perfectionism, because many women, because of being a mom, because of the way we were brought up, maybe even our generation, we really have this need to meet expectations, to people please, to have everything right, and failing doesn't feel like an option. How can you help women feel like failure might not be the worst thing that could happen?
We learn from failure. We get better because of our failures. I cannot tell you how many times I have failed over and over and over again, just because I did take a step and I did trust, but I didn't learn. I had to learn through failure sometimes that it needed to be refinement. It needed to be a process. I needed to walk it out. And I promise you, you appreciate it more. You do. And I think with failure, we can allow what I say is the enemy, the devil, right? Is to be able to tell us that we are not worthy, that we're not capable, we don't have the knowledge, we're not good enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not all the things. And I think in our generation, we are doers, right? We were the business suit, briefcase, shoulder pad, generation, and we go and do and accomplish the world, because that's what they told us when we graduated high school, is go and do all the things, and you can have whatever your dreams aspire to be and just go do it. And what we have found is that's just not true. It's not true, because we have failed over and over and again, sometimes in the things that we've stepped out to do. But we have to get into a place of picking ourselves back up and saying, I've got something that I can leave a lasting mark in. I know for me, that's where I'm at with myself is, what is my lasting mark? I feel like I'll be 52 this year, and I'm thinking, where do I go? What do I do? And I think it was putting this podcast together and really kind of just honing into, I'm not the only one here. I know I'm not the only one struggling to figure out what clarity looks like, what faith and fear look like, how to live a fearless life, and being able to leave a lasting legacy. That is so important to me. So that, to me, nullifies any kind of fear that I have. That tells me that's my goal. So it wipes away any fear that I have. And I think we have to remember, scripture says that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And to me, that covers everything. That covers all fear, for sure.
Oh, it really does. I am still kind of marinating in something you just said, how we really don't feel worthy. We don't feel good enough. And it reminds me of being in the world versus of the world. And we're so caught up in what people are going to think about what we do. And I think that fear manifests itself in many different ways. But first of all, how does that fear of what other people think manifest itself in us emotionally? How does that make us feel when we're constantly thinking about what other people think instead of what God's thinking?
Well, it keeps us stagnant. It keeps us still. It keeps us doing nothing. And I think that's probably why a lot of us are in a stuck position. Because when we can stay stuck, the enemy wins and God loses every time. Because we are not walking the plans and purposes out for our life. And so maybe you were created to do your own podcast. Maybe you were created to be a coach. Maybe you were created to be an executive, a C-suite, whatever that is, right? But at the end of the day, it's being able to know that you have the tools, that God's put everything inside of you to use for your gift and for him to get the glory. And if we can walk those things out and trust that, that's the part where we have to understand that the fear that we may have, the feeling like we're not worthy. Wow, let me tell you, I think there is so much more where I talk to women on a daily basis. I even talked to a young lady this week where, she's wanting to be a speaker. She's wanting to get out there, and she's in her late 30s, and she's wanting to get some coaching and stuff, but she's excited. She's got her first speaking gig. And I was taken aback because I thought, it's been about 20 years that I went out and I spoke for the first time. And I think there was about 20, and it was a young moms group. And there was about 25 moms there. And I was just so nervous, right? And I look back and I go, if I didn't have that, if I didn't have those opportunities given to me to learn, to be able to cut through in the sense of refine myself, to understand, there was no way that I was going to speak to the audiences that I speak to now. But if I didn't take the opportunity that was given to me and said, no, I'm better than that, then shame on me, right? Shame on us when we say no to the things because we want better. We have to know that we've got to start from a beginning process, starting from zero, starting from a blank slate. And we allow God to just continue to write our stories out, no matter what age we're at. So with with this mom, she's so excited, but yet she's nervous. But here's the encouragement: is just go do it and learn from it, and just trust that this is an opportunity that you can just learn from it. And so she's excited about it. I think those are the things that we have to learn: is stepping out and trusting the process.
Yes. And that makes so much sense, because I always say, I wish I could take back the first year of this podcast, because, we learned we had to jump in and do it. I was terrified, but everything gets better as we go along. I wish I could take back the first 2 years of health coaching, because what I learned in school is not what's really going on in the real world with my women. There are so many things that when we just jump in, we learn on our own what is working for us. Everyone's different. I think we also think we have to have a cookie cutter success. What is
Right.
success for one person may not be the same for another.
Mm-hmm.
And I relate this back also. We talk a lot on this podcast about emotional eating and just even the fear of breaking out of diet culture, the fear of breaking free from what is the actual definition of beauty in most people's eyes on social media as opposed to how God sees us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it all relates. And that reminds me, I would love to know too, what are some of the past issues or past experiences or limiting beliefs that women are bringing in with them that are stopping them from getting unstuck?
Mm-hmm. I think one is not feeling good enough, like we talked about. So not feeling worthy of the knowledge that they might have. They don't feel good enough. They don't feel experienced enough. That's been probably the biggest one. The other one is well, I don't need to go do that because everybody else is doing it anyway. And I find that your message is your message. Your keynote is your keynote. Your doing is your doing. Your class is your course, whatever that is. It has your personality attached to it. It has your face attached to it. And that's what makes it unique. And when we can just cross off and say, well, everybody else is doing it, again, we're not using the giftings that God's given us. And so I think those are the things that when we can, you think of it as a team, right? I used to coach my daughter's softball team in middle school a long time ago. But even so, you have, 9 players on the field. It takes everybody to play the game. You don't get to play it individual. And God needs you on the team. He needs you to participate. He needs you to be the things that he needs you to be out in this world today. And if we want to be a part of the team, we've got to do the things that excite us, that get us up during the day and say, you know what, I'm going to go do this, because whether it is working out or whether it's putting together some type of a program, right? Whatever that is, as long as it makes you feel good and you're excited about it, that's your drive. That's your go-to. That's the knowing that not feeling good enough. No, that has to stop, because you are good enough. You are worthy enough. You have enough inside of you, because all it needs to go back to is that one person. If you can impart into one person, you've done so much more than just sitting on the sidelines.
That is so true. If you can think of one person doing it for the glory of God and that one woman or that one man that needs to hear it,
Yeah.
that is amazing. It's funny that you said that, because I know people don't mean anything by what they say. I try not to internalize it, but someone said to me the other day, I've heard it probably 10 times now, oh, everybody's got a podcast now. And I really had to work hard. And it is rewiring. Everything that you are teaching, everything that we are trying to do right now to help women get unstuck is rewiring in the brain. I really had to say, but they're not doing it my way. They're not me. And it's really challenging to go up against that thought process. And we have to work hard on that and practice. So I do love that.
Yeah.
But that overthinking and that perfectionism is really self-sabotaging. Do you have any tools or techniques or help to rewire that thinking out of, I have to have this perfect? Because one of your phrases that's my favorite is do it messy. I just wrote you the other day when you did that story or post. I was like, I get you. Do it messy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do we rewire? What are some tips and tools to help us change that?
Well, I think for overthinking, we have to go to a place of writing. What I like to do is write your goal down and then reverse engineer that, right? So when you are in a process of, okay, maybe it is starting a podcast, right? And so that's the end goal, is you want to start a podcast. Well, how am I going to do that? And every day you're going to check off that thing that's going to get you closer to that podcast launch. When you stay stuck over a week in that one thing to move on to the next thing, that's you telling, I'm overthinking this. And that's why I say, do it messy. Do it messy. Because if you don't, you will always stay stuck. You will always find a reason, an excuse to stay and go. And this is where perfectionism kicks in. You know, we want it to be perfect. We want the thing to come out and it's going to be our everything that we want. But in order for it to do that, I want it to be perfect. And so what I tell people is when you have a list of things that you say, okay, this is what I want to accomplish. And maybe it's for a month, maybe it's for the week, whatever that task looks like, whatever that end goal looks like, reverse engineer that to know what the steps are to do that, and then hit that every step. But if you find yourself stuck in a week, at least over a week, then you're in a place where you're overthinking. And you need to challenge yourself to say, no, this is my opportunity to do it messy to get me to the next step. And everything else will fall into place. So that's probably my biggest hint.
Michelle, you are speaking to me. I know there's listeners out there who are doing the same thing, because I will literally look at my schedule and I will think, oh, if I don't have 3 hours to sit down and really get into this project, I can't do it. Yeah. And instead of breaking it down into those little steps like you talked about, those little goals, and doing one little thing on every little break that I get, and just sticking with it. And I think that's another thing too. I think distractibility. Right now we are all so distracted. We are so busy. We have so many different things coming in, but I think we also let them come in. This is a side note, but I started time blocking and putting in. Brain FM has these beats that go with music that help you focus.
Oh, okay.
So I have that app because after menopause, I felt a little distracted all the time, among other many, many, many things.
Right.
But I felt like I had to come up with some tools in order to do exactly what you said and start going through those little steps. So I think that's a great tip. I think it's a great tip. I would love to know about doubt and second guessing. How do we push through that deep doubt? Because that's ingrained in some of us. We have been told growing up that our ideas weren't good ideas. We were told that maybe women didn't do certain things. We were told that, you know, being a mom, that's the biggest thing. Or in business, you're only going to go so far. When that creeps in, what do you say to your clients?
Usually when they're in a place of doubt, it's because they have failed. Let's get honest. A lot of that can be issued when we fail in something, or we feel like we failed in something. And so therefore, we don't want to take another step. You know, we're scared to. And so the doubt comes into play. And I feel like when I hear that, it really is into, you've got to get through this. I go back to the story of Moses all the time when it comes to this place, because he is so perfect in understanding where he doubted himself. He doubted the way he talked. He doubted on how to figure out how to take these numbnut Israelites that weren't listening, and how am I going to do this? And he did it. And he really got to be able to see the things, the process through it. And he doubted every step in that sense in the beginning, until he realized, as soon as he took himself away from it and trusted God with it, all doubt and all fear left. And I think those are the things that I find with doubt is we have to cast our cares. The Bible says to cast our cares on him. And when we have a place where we feel that we're tired of failing, so therefore we're just going to not do it anymore because I doubt I'm going to be any good, right? The world has told me I'm not any good. You know, a lot of, especially with women, I find that have gone through divorce, or they have estrangement from their children. That is a huge doubt place where they rest into this, because they feel like, why? I fail at everything I touch, so why should I continue? And it goes back to what we were talking about. It's if the enemy can get you to continue to believe that, then he wins. And we have to get to a place of where we got to get out of our own pit and realize that I am who God says I am. Not what the world wants me to believe, not what the world tells me that I should look, feel, and see and do, right? But to be able to understand that I walked through some things, I made some bad decisions, I failed at some things, but that does not define me. If anything, it refines me.
I love that. It does not define me. If anything, it refines me. And I think that remembering who we are in God versus the world, and of course, that is, I know that's a struggle.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you're online, that is one of the biggest struggles because
yeah.
we see so much and our brains get really infiltrated. And the morning routine, for example, I bring that up a lot because I think that's a beautiful way to start. If you start with your devotions and God in the day, we know we forget stuff by the end of the day. We have to revisit. Our cortisol's low. We're getting a little tired.
Right.
We have to revisit. It's like eating, you know,
Right.
that afternoon slump, want that cookie and that caffeine instead of the good stuff. We've
Yeah.
all been there. We know what it's like at the end of the day. We're a little more frazzled. And, but I think having that time to ourselves, I think that's one thing that women are not always good at, is carving out that time to create that peace and not start the day in chaos, so they can remember all these beautiful things that you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just really
Well, I
getting
think,
into it.
yeah, because you know, I can't speak for everybody in the sense of, I can tell you, go and have a morning devotion time. It will change your life. I can say that all day long, but you have to choose to do that. But I can tell you what it's done for me. It starts my day in a good way. It gets me a place of peace and understanding when I can sit in a stillness and go, you know, Lord, I'm struggling with this today. Or I don't feel good about myself today. Or I don't feel worthy about where you're taking me. And you know what I find is that this is the time when it's him and I having a conversation. Him and I, you know, God and I, the Holy Spirit being able to talk each other in a way that we can have a relationship and know that this is where he's my best friend. I cannot imagine doing life without him. And so that's why I'm saying, for everybody, it's a choice. And it depends on your relationship and how far you want to go in your relationship with him. I'm telling you, God wants you to reach as far as you can because he wants all of you. But it's how much you give him and how much you want a relationship back with him is everybody has to choose that.
And that is exactly what it is. It's a relationship. It's not condemning when we really feel honest and can put out there, because guess what? He knows it anyway. So
That's it. That is
might
it.
as well
Right.
speak it out and get some help from it. But I think the stillness is really important. I love that. I love that you talk about the stillness, because when we don't get quiet sometimes, those decisions are very, very hard to make. And I am most stuck when I am not still and quiet. And I'm very disconnected from my mind and my body. And even spiritually, if I get disconnected from any of those, I really struggle to make decisions. And I'm not even going to say good decisions, because it doesn't matter which way I go. Sometimes I have to just pick and choose and see how it works.
Well, and I think for me, especially when I'm coaching, you know, for me, and I'm just different when I coach, in the sense of, I'm no good to you. I can tell you all the techniques and all the benefits of it, but my goal is to get you on fire for God, your relationship with God, the center focus. And here's what happens when they realize, when these women realize who they are in Christ and the God that's in them and through them and what they can do and the power that they have. Because again, God is not a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and sound mind. And when they can catch a hold of those three things, let me tell you, they don't need a coach, because they've got the ultimate coach. And so those are the things that I I'm different in that, because that's, for me, that's what I want. I want you to be on on my team, and therefore you're on our team and the bigger team. Because if we can get all of us together doing the things that God has put us to do, you imagine what we can do in this world today, where we are in the world but we're not of it, and so we can accomplish so much greater. Again, I can coach you all day long, but until we weed out all the junk and get you to a place of true relationship with Christ, that's my goal. That's what I want for people.
I love that. And living by grace, not perfection.
Hmm.
Because I
Yeah.
think we really lean into that. But I'm going to repeat something you said that
Yeah.
I'm going to steal and use even with my clients. He is the ultimate coach. And we're
Yeah.
all on the same team together. In fact, I love that you said that, because this also relates to all of us who
Yeah.
are out there coaching. So many coaches will say to me, there's so many coaches out there, the markets are saturated. And we've already talked about the uniqueness that we bring to everything. But the other part of it is we're not against each other. There's no competition.
Right.
There are so many people that we can bring in to purpose and to God's glory. It's so
Yeah.
amazing. We're really all on the same team. And when we realize that, everybody wins. Everybody is
Right.
uplifted.
Well, and I think we have to go to, not only when we struggle, he is our comforter, but he is our provider. And I think that's where I find competition can be such an ugly monster. But when we can trust who our ultimate provider is, he's going to bring in the finances. He brings in the resources. So why am I in competition with you or anyone else when again the end goal is to join the team, the ultimate team, the being able to be coached by the one that is the biggest coach of all, if you will. So we want to, I think if we can get rid of the competition mindset, the competitive mindset, especially in the coaching world, we can accomplish so much more. And seeing a bigger vision and just depending that God will provide in the midst of all of it. We don't know what that's going to look like, but again, there's a trust that comes along with that.
Yes, the trust. And I think something you've said a couple times that made me think the trust is also filtering through the truth versus the lies that we tell
Oh, yeah.
ourselves and the enemy tells us. So I think that that is amazing. I'm curious about what about the woman who is not climbing the corporate ladder? She's not starting her own business. She has been a mom and she's just now looking for that next step. Do you have any tips for her to start exploring where can I go forward with my life and actually fulfill a purpose or help people now that I have not had all this career path behind me like other people?
Well, one, I think, I'll take you to a story that I did for Valentine's Day. My husband was out of the country for Valentine's Day, and I was just like, Lord, what can I do for Valentine's? Like, something, what can I do? Well, anyway, it was just real simple. I want you to just host a dinner. I want you to have a table full of women, and I want you to have a table full of widowed women. And I said, okay. So I had 8 women that were recently widowed. And for some reason, it was just had to be recent, within under 5 years or less, widowed. And so I had 8 women at my dinner table. We had some little goodie bags for them and such. And they just felt seen. They felt appreciated. And I had a dinner with them. And in this invite, when I gave them the invitation, I included 3 questions. But one of these questions to come with at the dinner was, what is something that you haven't done yet that you still wish you could do? And when we're at the dinner table and we're going through our questions and such, and people are answering these things, one of them stuck out to me, and I don't know why, but she said, she goes, I would still love to ballroom dance. I still want to learn how to ballroom dance. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm going to make that happen for her. I don't know how, but we're going to make that happen for her. Dreams never die. They never leave us. They never go away. And no matter what you've done in life, whether you were corporate and not anymore, or you're just finished being a mom, whatever that position is, just go and do the thing your heart's desire. You're trying to figure it out, right? So maybe it's volunteering. Maybe it's going to your junior league and volunteering. Maybe it's in your local church. Maybe it's in those places that you can utilize these giftings that you feel like, hey, I've got a few hours, I can contribute. And what happens is again, it goes back to the thing that we talked about, steps, taking a step, just taking an action. You may think it's small, but I promise you, this is where I love God's sense of humor, is maybe down the road, eventually something bigger happens, or somebody asks a question and it leads into a position. We don't know, but all God required was just a step. So I go back to the woman that all she wants to do is learn how to ballroom dance. And so that's my goal, is to make that happen for her. But the story is we're all going to have dreams. We all have goals. We all have aspirations. Don't ever, when we're not dreaming, we must not be living, right? So we've got to always have those dreams, but it doesn't mean to just tuck them in the corner and do nothing with them. Go and just follow and do the thing. Just take the step and just aspire to be whatever that is that you've set out to do.
And I love that, because I think that not only, let me just stop again, dreams never die. I love that. Is when we get older, sometimes we think it's too late to do things.
Yeah.
And I didn't even start this business, since in my third career, till I was 50 years old.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. There is a pastoral counselor that is joining our office, and he didn't start till he was 60.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. We can just keep going after those dreams.
And this woman, I mean, she's 72 years old.
Oh,
And she's
fun.
got energy and life, and you just think the simplicity of asking a question and the response just being, I just want to learn how to ballroom dance. She didn't want to start a business. She didn't want to be a coach. She didn't want to, mentor somebody. It was just, I just want to learn how to ballroom dance. That's what brought her joy. That's what brings her joy. That's what gets her up in the morning. Then I will make that happen. Some way, somehow, we're going to get her an instructor.
That's amazing, Michelle. I love that. And just the fact that, yes, what brings you joy? Because even if you don't want to start a business, get a job, do all the things, what are the hobbies that you used to do that you love? I have a client that didn't paint for 25 years. Wow. And when she started painting again, it was amazing. Another one started in doing her embroidery again. And those things that just make you happy and give you joy. Even sitting down, someone who hasn't had time to read a book or space to read a book or gave herself time. It really was her giving herself time. Those little joys are just so wonderful. They fill our cup, and we need to fill up every day. Yeah. So what does Fearless Forward mean to you?
Fearless Forward means to me living a life fearlessly. It's as simple as that. But in the sense of when we can live a life that is forward, without fear, and with knowing who we are in Christ, it goes back to what I was saying. We can do amazing things when we can confidently know those things and know who to trust and know who to go to when we don't feel qualified, when we don't feel good enough, when we have fear. And when we can walk in a way that says, no weapon formed against me shall prosper, that greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world, that's fearless. That's fearless, and you're moving forward. And so if I can go and spread that message on a constant basis, it goes back to the simple fact that we are unified and we are in the bigger picture, in the bigger scheme of things. And we get to be a part. What an opportunity when we get to be a part of the bigger vision that God has, not just for us, but for you and everyone else that is in this world today. that we can do amazing things, and we're teammates, and he's our coach. God is our coach, and he is leading us in the charge. He is directing our paths. And so when we can walk fearlessly, knowing those things, man, I'm telling you, just the fact that when I see that that light bulb moment come on for women to go, I get it. I get it. I don't get a call back, but a thank you, because they're done. They're like, you know what? I'm going to go do my thing. Because they've heard everything. Because you know what? Don't, my thing again is, I don't want you to depend on me. I want you to depend on him. I don't want you to come to me for insight. I don't want you to go to him. I don't want you to depend on me for the words. I want you to depend on his words. And so my job to me is to constantly push people towards Christ, to be able to say, this is the plans and purposes he's put in your life. Sure. If some people just need a little bit more encouragement, they need a little bit more insight, they need a little bit more, checklist. A lot of people are very checklist. Let's accomplish this, accountability, right?
Yes. Yes. I am raising my hand for those of you who are not on YouTube.
Right. And so we want the accountability, and that's what I'm here for. But again, I don't want to look at it as a transaction. I don't ever want this to be a transaction. The only thing I want this to be is a relationship that has caused you to a cause and effect. Because I was connected with Michelle, because I was connected with the fact that of her message, I understood and got clarity on what my purpose is. And therefore, I thank you for her encounter. I thank you, God, that you put her in my life. But I know now is that my goal is to walk this out with him. And that's what I want to do. And that's where I feel like if we can get these people, if we can get women, men, living in a fearless forward life, there's so much more we can do than just sitting in a chair, sitting on the pew, and doing nothing with what God's given us.
Wow. Just wow.
Oh,
So between you, Michelle, and the ultimate coach, I think we got a lot today. And I think that is a beautiful way for us to end, because that just summed up everything we talked about. And I love that. It's not transactional for you. It's that relationship. And you're really bringing people to God, and he's helping us do all the work. So thank you. Where can everyone find you so they can start connecting? Because I highly recommend people start watching you at least on Instagram.
yes. So Instagram, it's Michelle M. Sarabia. Website is michellesarabia.com. And then we are launching the Fearless Forward podcast on April 2nd. So we're excited. We've got about 8 episodes that we'll be launching with, and then I will be doing 1 episode every Wednesday from that point on. But we're bringing in guests, and I'll be doing some solos. But my goal is to continue with the message of women that are coming in, they're starting, maybe they were stuck, but I want you to see the transformation that has come out of the fact that because they were stuck and they got unstuck, what that looked like for them. And so every story is different. And I don't want to just be another podcast. I'm not doing this just to add another podcast to your list, right? I'm doing this and just trusting God with the rest. We're doing it messy. No explanation, no understanding, but just trusting that it's going to be landing in the right people at the right time.
It's going to be amazing. Congratulations on that, because I know what it's like to start and not have all the answers yet.
Yeah.
But you're getting the answers as it comes to you, and it is going to be amazing. I can't wait for that. And I will put all the information in the show notes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You are such a blessing. I know the listeners got a lot out of this and probably need to share it with a friend who needs to hear everything. And also maybe even just take some notes, because we have to go back and remember and rewire. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you.
And listeners, nourish your entire life and give yourself grace today.